Welcome back to another tutorial video. Today I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach, and I'm going to do something a little bit more behind the scenes. So I'm going to show um, this is the development um, build system that I use for HTML websites when I'm making landing pages or small marketing websites. At my job, I've developed this build system. It's built on top of two other people. One is Travis Nielsen. He runs the DevTips for Designers channel on YouTube. I don't believe that he's doing that anymore. He works at Google now as one of their designers. And he built kind of a basic startup kit that you could download and just kind of get right into developing a website. It had some files that were put in there, you know, that you could just kind of get in and start hacking away at and have all the things that you need. It was set up with Sass and some other things. And then I also, I believe his name is Michael Dorda, and he created kind of a fork of that GitHub project that included Gulp and Pug, which are two things that I use. And so now this build system that I'm calling the 20-hour head start is built with Gulp and Pug and Sass. Now I use, you can use SCSS, or I just use like the old school indented Sass because I can understand it a little bit better. But what happens is you have a build system built with like auto refresh. It automatically converts the Pug and the Sass files into HTML and CSS and outputs it to a folder that you can just copy those files and then move over to your server. So it's actually a really handy and good build system. It's served me for doing professional projects at work, and one of the things that I like about it is it gives me a head start. So I used to have to create this build system every single time I wanted to fire up a website, and now I don't have to do that because I just copy and paste the files. I get it set up a little bit, and then I'm off and running. I'll show you how easy it is to set it up. I call it the 20-hour head start because if I were running a marathon, it would be like I don't know, if you were going like a normal website. I'm sorry, the metaphor breaks down, but if you were doing a normal website, it might take maybe 30 hours of work. The idea is that this is going to cut out, 20 hours worth of work and get you up and running faster, because it's not only the build system. I've actually incorporated some common design patterns or HTML patterns, modules, if you want to call them modules. And also I've created the layout CSS for that. So it has Flexbox in it. It has CSS grid incorporated into some of the modules, and the CSS grid comes with the Flexbox fallback for those modules. So you can see where it would save you a lot of time. So let me show you what's inside before you get it up and going. Okay, so there's a README that shows you essentially what all is in it, how to go about starting a new project, and then once you start a new project, how to use the Gulp commands. You have to use the command line a little bit, but it's really not that big of a deal. There's a package.json, and then there's a Gulp file, so you can see what all is happening. You could add or take away from this Gulp file. There's a configuration file, and this allows you to change the output folders, deal with favicons, decide on what sort of CSS that you want to output, and also what sort of HTML that you want to output. So it's really nice. All you have to do is change this to one of these. If you're doing production, then it automatically does it into one line, and it minifies everything and compresses everything. And so it's a really handy configuration file. There's we use Bower to pull in. This is built on Node and npm, and so you're pulling in a lot of these resources that you're going to use, like browser sync and the gulp and the Sass, and just some different sorts of things that are included into it. There's a git ignore, so if you're using GitHub, you can ignore out certain parts of the files that you're transferring or you're syncing with GitHub. And you have two files when you start out. You have a build folder and you have a source folder. Now your source folder is going to be full of your working files, and your build folder is going to be full of the output files. So you don't want to mess with the build folder. You only want to use it to take those files and move it over to your server, or you want to push those, you know, up to GitHub or whatever you want to do with them. But those are your output files, so that's the final file when everything has been finished. In your source, you have all of your different build files, essentially. So under views, this is where your pug files are going to be. If you've never used pug before, pug is like Sass for HTML. It has increased the speed with which I can make a website tremendously. It allows me to do things like this, which is to do templating with the HTML files. So right here I have a container with the ID of mastheads, and then from there I'm pulling in this file here. So it's under partials, mastheads, and then masthead normal. So this is the this is all the information, I mean the HTML code that's getting pulled into this container here. And so it'll be a container called mastheads, and then inside of that is going to be another container that is actually called masthead, and that's going to be your normal container. And now there's a lot of once you understand everything, there's a lot of configuration and changes that you can make, and I normally use these as templates, so I will duplicate these files, and then I'll put them in the root folder, or I'll put them into the root of the partials folder. That way it's just easier for me to keep track of any sections of code that are specific to this website, because normally I'm not going to, you know, hero text overlay. That's just in order to let you know what it is, but maybe it's going to be an about section, or maybe it's going to be a call to action section, or a module that you're going to use over and over again. So, you know, feel free to duplicate and copy these and rename them whatever you want. These are just to help me keep them straight about what they are, and to find the code easily. So this is your pug files. There is a set of Sass excuse me, Sass files. Your main page is only used for importing other Sass files. So you're going to reach into these folders, and you're going to pull out, you know, the Sass files from those folders. There's a lot of stuff in here. Some of it is stuff that I touch all the time. Some of it is stuff I don't ever touch. Like there's a normalize. So if you want to not use any sort of CSS code that's going to bring everything, the browser, back to a standard, you can just remove that. But this particular build uses normalize. There's a, you know, some built-in variables that you can use. So these are just CSS variables that you could pull right into the code, and then you could deal with fonts. There's some basic things like the body element. There are some predefined buttons, so ghost buttons and inverse buttons, as well as just regular buttons. This creates responsive images. Maybe if you have more image styles, you could put them here. You can style your links, and any sorts of typography, general typography, you would put in here. There are modules. There's a flex video module, so this actually creates a responsive video. So if you add this to a video iframe, especially if you're using YouTube, it works really well. So then you have a container called Flex Video, and then inside that you have your iframe or whatever your embed is, or if you have an HTML5 video, you put it inside that Flex Video container, and it is responsive to the website layout. So that's really a nice thing to have. There are a couple of these different sections that use like a two up, one thing on the left and one thing on the right, and so I'm using Flexbox for that. You could also mix in CSS Grid with that if you wanted to. I don't have anything yet for pages, because that's kind of, you know, if you have specific layout things for your pages, you would just put those in there. And then there's a whole section of sections which corresponds with these partials. So in the features, so they match up features grid, features large image, text, features text. So you can see how these things, when you go in here, then you're going to see all of the CSS for this features text. You know, I made all these decisions in here, so things correspond pretty well. And if you have any issues, you should be able to figure them out. There's a product grid that utilizes CSS grid layout, and then it also has a Flexbox fallback. So if you don't know how to do that, that's in here. You can learn from that. Or if you're just looking for speed, CSS grid is really great, but you do need that fallback to cover Internet Explorer and browsers that don't handle the display grid property very well. So it comes with grid. It's the newest and latest and best. I use grid on almost every single project that I've made in the last year. There's also an assets folder, so it comes ready for jQuery. If you don't want to use jQuery for your JavaScript, then you just erase all this and just write your vanilla JavaScript. This functions.js is already being called. Where is it being called? It's being called down here. You can move these things into a footer. So you can move it into one of the footers. So all you have to do is open your footer and then add that code into your footer if that's what you want to, how you want to bring it in. But right now it's being loaded here, so you can erase this if you're not using jQuery. And then this is your app-specific JavaScript. So whenever you're writing up here in your functions, that's where outputs is to your assets and app.js. So that's where it's output. And then you add your images in here. You don't add your images into the build folder. You could if you wanted to, but you're not going to have the same sort of access to them. But your images get copied from your source folder into your assets image folder. So they get copied right over. You don't have to worry about doing that. That happens through a gulp task. All right, so those are the general files. And the way to start a new project is to take your site here, and then I'm on a PC, so I do the Windows icon and then R, which opens up the run box. You could also do that, you know, just through hitting the start button. You know, I'm on Windows 8, so it's a little bit weird. So command or Windows R, and then you can open up the command. So this is your the CLI, so you're just using the interface straight with the operating system. And this is the easiest way to get to things that I've found. And so what you want to do is you change the directory, and then I just like to copy it straight in there like that. So you can change your directory to the new site, and then actually let's change it to this one. And so what we do is we run run npm install ampersand, and then you run bower install. And that's really it. You click OK, and then it begins to install it pulls in all of the dependencies that you need, and it runs. Again, this is running on Node, so you need to have Node on your machine. If you don't have that, you can get it at I don't know what the website is, but you can just look up Node.js download, and you should be able to search online and find it. It's a free download and allows you to open up into the world of Node.js. So I'm not going to do that because I've already run this site on there. So what I'm going to do is open that website, and I'm going to start it for the first time. So we go to our website, and then we have a lot of commands that we can use with our gulp. I'm going to show you. Hopefully it comes up. I think it's help. We also, yeah, there it is. And then we also need to open our website in our editor at the same time. So for the DevTips starter kit, the way you use it is you say gulp, and then you run these commands. So you can remove all of the compiled files from your build folder just by saying gulp clean. You can compile all the different parts of your website individually. So if you have images and you only want to copy the new images to the build folder, you can just run gulp images and it'll copy it over. If you do gulp build, it will just build the project into the build folder. Gulp watch sets up your browser sync. And then the one that you'll most likely use all the time is gulp start, which starts everything. So it starts the browser sync, it does a build, it sends everything over, so it compiles everything and puts it into your build folder. So that's the one that I find myself using a lot. So that's what we'll do. We'll just say gulp start. So it's compiling our Sass, our Pug, our JavaScript. It's sending the images over, tells you how long it took to do that. And then it sets up browser sync, right? So the really cool part about browser sync is that you can either do it on the local host, which is just on your local computer, and it also gives you an external URL that you're able to use, and you can put this into, let's say you have a phone that you want to develop for. So if you wanted to do multiple devices, any device you want to see the website, you just go to this URL, put it into the browser, and then you can literally have your devices around you so that you can develop for mobile and desktop all at the same time. I don't commonly use that because internally it doesn't work very well in my company, but when I'm at home and I'm developing personal websites, I certainly will tap into that external URL. So it's pretty cool way to do it now. Makes you feel real grown up and professional whenever you're developing for mobile and desktop all at the same time, and you're able to code big chunks pretty easily all at the same time. So we have it running now, and if we go to our website, we can just look at localhost and then colon and 3000, and that's our localhost URL and our address, and this is the website as I have it right now. So you can see the different modules that I've created. Just a simple header, a hero image with the centered text overlay. This is the 2-up I was talking about. So this one, there's text left and an image right. Could be a video, could be 2 images, could be whatever you want. These are flexible blocks that I use and that we use in our design here. And we have a designer, and working with him, I have a pretty good feel for what he's making. So I've created these predetermined blocks to kind of give me a head start, and then I can just start making sure that I manipulate both the text and massage the layout a little bit if I need to. There's a feature section here, and then this is using grid layout, CSS grid layout. So it's a nice little 3-up sort of feature. This has a button with it, kind of a call to action. So there's a heading and then a subhead, and then you have some sort of button. This shows you, just the general rollover effects for the different types of buttons. There's a button, there's an inverse button, there's a ghost button, and an inverse ghost button. So depending on the type of background, you might need to use a different class of button. This is something that we've used before. It's a la apple.com, where you have a nice big image and then you have a few features underneath. And then we are a company that sells products, and so we are always creating product grids. So I created this like 3x3 product grid. It's super easy to add more products to the product grid, and then you have kind of a call to action down here, and then a simple footer. So these are just some of the basic components of the websites that we build, and we'll mix and match some of those things. And obviously you're going to have to create some different sections. Those aren't the only sections that you're going to use, but it's certainly it's a lot of the sections that we're going to use on most of our pages. And then because I'm using Pug, which used to be called Jade, that's a templating language. It's using JavaScript to do templating. What I can do is I can then create those modules and reproduce those modules on different pages throughout the website. So it's a form of templating, but what comes out at the end is an HTML website. So here is the only change that's made here is that now you have your Node modules. So you can see these are all the things that Bauer went out and downloaded. So there's a lot of different technologies that are coming into this to make this build system. And then here, obviously we have that, but all of these are essentially going to be the same. A couple of things to highlight as far as what I'm bringing in. You have your title here. This makes the site responsive. You can load a favicon or not. So all you have to do is put your favicon in this the image folder. You can load font icons if you want. I have one of my favorites is the Material Design iconic font, and you can view the website here. That's actually being brought in right here through an external URL. So that's not local. You could certainly add it in here and create it as a local set of files. There's a place here to load Google fonts if you want. So you just you would load your Google fonts here and link to them. And then finally it loads the final style sheet there. Again, there's jQuery, and then your regular app.js is being loaded in as well. So that's the build system. If you want to look at it, you can. I don't know how the best way to do this is. Maybe send me a message on Twitter, and I can give you a link to where you could download the files. And I'll just give you a zip of the files, and then you'll have to just go through and you'll have to go into your CLI, and then you'll just have to build the system like I showed you with the npm install and the Bauer install, and then once you run it, you wind up with the finished project, which is here, and then you can mix and match those different things. So maybe I'll do a broader series if people want to see that goes more in depth into like how to use Pug, how to use Sass. It's common for a lot of people who have been in web design for a long time. These are pretty standard technologies. They're not, they're not strange to most people. Pug might be a little bit strange to some people, but I could show you how to work that and how it works. You can see here that this is not your normal HTML. This gets compiled into this, which is your normal HTML. So I can show you how that works and show you how to get that moving and working. There's also a great tutorial series from Travis Nielsen about using Jade, and he also has some about using Sass. So if you're new to those technologies, I would encourage you to go to DevTips for designers. That's a channel on YouTube. If you just type in DevTips, you'll probably find it. It's very popular, and he has some really great tutorial videos on both Pug and, well, it used to be called Jade, so you'll find it under Jade, and then Sass. And he uses the same .sass version that I do. He doesn't use SCSS. So I think for a designer, there's something about just the clarity, the ease of being able to see it, and you're not being bothered by curly braces and things like that. So that's the same reasons that Travis uses that is the same reason that I do. And it's because there's no curly braces here. There's just there's no semicolons. That appeals to me, and it helps me to write a lot faster as well. And finally, the last piece is I'm using Atom as a text editor. So if you're looking for a good HTML text editor, web text editor, code editor, I suggest Atom, and it integrates really well with GitHub. It integrates really well with this build system, and I've had no issues. It's totally free to download, and it's made by a reputable company. So I don't think that you can go wrong there. Alright, so that's my normal HTML build system. It's contained in a file folder just like this. It's nothing extensive or amazing. There's no crazy hoops to jump through. Just a few commands, let it run, another command, and you're ready to go. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If I've misspoken, correct me. If there's something that would be really good to add to this, you can send it to me. I'm not great on some of these more back-end technologies, so may or may not make it in. Maybe I can throw it up on GitHub and people can begin to make the build system a little better. But I think it will give you a big head start on modern marketing websites or landing pages, because a lot of the HTML has been created for you, and it's also a good way to learn how to do some of those newer things that we're doing in web development these days. So leave a comment below if you have a question or a comment, and make sure you like it, click the thumbs up, and if you really like it, then please share it with your friends if you think that there's someone who could benefit from knowing about this. And if you want a copy of it, I'll try to work on that, and I'll leave a link to that down in the information section under the video. And you can also send me a message on on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @BrianHafferkamp, Brian with an I, and feel free to reach out to me and ask me for a link to the file, or to send you the file, or email them to you, or whatever you want, and I'll get that to you so that you can play around with it or use it. I hope this has been helpful for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.